Hey everybody, it's Rob and Cam with First Friday's High Five, and today we have a special guest with us, Jim WIlcox, who many of you know is the president and owner of WIlcox and Associates right here in Fort Wayne, Indiana. So we've got 5 questions for Jim, and we're going to just hear the things that he has to say. Jim, how you doing today?
I'm doing well, Rob. Cameron, thank you for having me. I'm excited, although I'm not 100% sure what I've got myself into.
No problem. Cam, go ahead and start us off, buddy.
Okay. So, Jim, what would you say has been the most important leader that you have been able to follow, been under the wing, and kind of take ideas from?
Oh, wow. Great first question. So there are many. Holy cow, I've got a flood of people in my head. So one of my mom's great friends ran a company at a young age. When I was a teenager, I learned from him. Many of you know that my background, I have a clinical background. So I think of all the hospital, the physician, the nursing, the CEO, executive leaders that I learned from that clinical experience. I think now of all the people within my Sandler network that I look to turn to for guidance and leadership. There are so many that, to come up with one, that's a really tough question to answer, but I have a flood of people in my head all of a sudden. And I think
awesome.
I think that's a part of it, right? Is knowing all those people come back and I can hear the words in my head. I can see the relationship. So, I think that, as you're on this journey, it's a culmination of all the leaders and all the lessons that, really make people who they are.
Perfect.
Absolutely. That's a perfect example, Jim. Thank you. Okay, second question. Give us one thing that we could take away from this as to how to best navigate this COVID-19 time of crisis that we're in as leaders.
I think first and foremost, we've got to prioritize and execute, right? Yeah. And we've got to, as leaders, I can back up, I guess, a little bit. We've got to check our own attitudes because people look to leadership. They watch you, right? They look for you to be a beacon of hope, a beacon of possibility, right? But beyond that, we've got to prioritize and execute quickly. We cannot get stuck in the quicksand. So we've got to be able to say, this is number 1, go. Here's what we got to do. Number 2, go. And not get trapped in, what do I do? Where do I go? And so that's what I would say is first and foremost.
Gotcha.
Very good. Thank you very much.
You bet.
Question 3. What is one characteristic that you look for out of an employee?
Commitment.
Ooh, why?
Oh, wow.
Commitment. I look for commitment. It's commitment to a mindset. It's commitment to behaviors. It's commitment to, that thing, that one thing, the things above all else. What am I committed to? And, if you want to understand somebody's commitment, just watch what they do. Right. So I look for commitment, and that's evidenced by, the behaviors that they do.
Awesome. Yeah. Somebody else told me one time, if I want to check out commitment, look at their checkbook.
There you go.
That'll reveal it right away.
Sure will.
All right. Question 3, buddy. Since we're kind of in a time of stay-at-home orders, what is a book, a particular book that you would recommend that would add value to people during this time?
Again, many, many books. I'm currently reading Extreme Ownership, which is by Jocko Willink. Great, great, great book on really having extreme ownership. That's something that, I've never really termed it that way. As I read the book, it's very familiar to me. I mean, the stories, from the Navy SEALs are very interesting, but the whole concept of extreme ownership is something that's very familiar to me. I love the way that he, is writing the story. He and Leif Babin, how they're writing the story and, talking about extreme ownership. So that's what I'm reading currently, and that's a book I would recommend.
Great. Awesome. Okay, final question, right, Cam?
Yes, it is. All right. Okay. So I started off with a question that was big, and I'm going to end with a question that is big.
Okay.
So, if you could break bread with anyone, who would it be and why? I know. I told you I was bringing it home. I started big and ending big.
Holy cow. Break bread with anyone. Man, no wonder you didn't prep me for this, right? I don't want to give the obvious answer either. I mean, the obvious answer is if I could break bread with Jesus Christ, like I would do that.
Yes.
Right. And I would have so many questions.
Yes.
And I would also just sit in bewilderment and listen. Right.
Yeah,
but that's the obvious answer. And so, if I could sit and break bread with anyone, who would I? Man. Well, that's a tough one. We may spend the next 5 minutes with me thinking about this. There are so many. It's interesting. I took a 2,400-mile road trip this year, and allegedly, I'm related to Meriwether Lewis, right? The great explorer, Meriwether Lewis.
Wow,
and so
awesome.
On that road trip, I went by his burial site. And so I drove the entire length of the Natchez Trace Parkway, which is a 444-mile parkway between Natchez, Mississippi, and Nashville, Tennessee. It's a federal parkway. I drove that as part of a 2,400-mile solo road trip. And I stopped by Meriwether Lewis's gravesite. And I think it would be very interesting to break bread with Meriwether Lewis. One, because allegedly I'm related. My grandmother's maiden name is Lewis. My grandmother's married name is Lewis. So my grandfather allegedly, I haven't done the genealogy on it. I don't know if it's accurate or not, but that's been the family story that's been passed down for a lot of years. And, I think just because that, recency, right?
Yeah.
I think that would be interesting just to understand,
Sure.
what the world looked like back in those days and all the travels and the exploration, just to get that perspective of what our Earth looked like, back in those days. So the obvious answer, right?
Right.
And then I'll give you an answer just because of the recency of it. But there are so many people that I would break bread with. So
gotcha.
There you go.
There we go. Well, Jim, we just want to say thanks so much for taking the time out during this pandemic to say hello and answer these questions with us. And please don't be a stranger. Come back again.
Oh my gosh, I would love to. Yes, anytime. So I would love an invitation back. So
perfect.
All right.
Well, thank you.
Okay, and
I forgot, Jim. We're gonna do a high five. What we're gonna do is on the count of 3, we're gonna bring our hands to the monitor. We're gonna touch the monitor, and then we'll close it from there. Okay.
All right. Good deal. Appreciate you guys.
Thanks, Jim.
So
Thanks.
All right. So in 1, 2, 3, high five.
High five.
All right. High five. All right, guys.
Perfect.